In this video, we're going to be looking at modifying your existing turntable. Now, why would you want to do such a thing? Well, the standard move is that if you have a hi-fi, a resident hi-fi, and it's been going pretty well and toddling along quite nicely, and then all of a sudden you get this hankering for something better, improved detail maybe firmer bass, and generally improved sound quality, your first instinct is to buy something new, to upgrade what you have. So if you have a turntable, to buy a new turntable and replace the one already in your possession. Now that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, and 9 times out of 10, if you buy yourself an upgraded, more expensive, better quality turntable, you'll get better quality sound with it. But you don't have to always buy a brand new turntable. Sometimes you can upgrade the turntable you already own. That's because the turntable you already have often isn't working to its full capacity. There is a bit of room there to maneuver. There's a bit of excess capacity that can be filled, and you can realize this capacity by upgrading small items on your turntable. So upgrading a little bit here and there can improve the sound of the entire turntable, and you can do it at a fairly low cost. So if you have a turntable and you like its sound, you like the way it performs, and maybe you're just a little bit nervous about a new turntable because a new piece of hi-fi can often bring in a slightly altered sound, something slightly different, and you're not often too sure if you're going to like that sound. There's a little bit of trepidation sometimes when you buy a new piece of hi-fi. How will that alter the sound of my entire hi-fi? So sometimes upgrading what you already have is a less scary option, one that will allow sound improvements by steady increments. It's a way of upgrading that gives you a little bit more surety in terms of the sound you're expecting to hear. It's also a great way of upgrading your hi-fi on a budget. If you're going to upgrade your turntable, let's say you've got a turntable £300, shall we say. If you're going to upgrade your turntable to say something like £750 to make it worth your while, that's quite a wodge of extra cash. But what if you can spend, say, £30 here, maybe in a couple of months, £40 here, maybe 2 or 3 months later, £50 there, and you hear sound improvements after every upgrade step. It's a nice, gentle way of upgrading. It's a way of improving the sound of your hi-fi and being gentle on your pocket at the same time. But there's also the fact that a lot of good quality audiophile turntables currently on the market are not being used to their full capacity. Now, why is this? So say you're a designer and your boss says, right, we need to produce a turntable here. We need to hit a £299 price point. Well, you've only got so much cash in order to build your turntable. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to concentrate on the big things in that turntable: the plinth, the platter, the arm. If there's a cartridge, the cartridge as well. They're going to take the majority of your build budget. The fiddly bits, your platter mat, the feet, and other stuff like that, the cables if they're detachable or even if they're not, all those fiddly bits are going to be thrown in to the mix with any change that's left over. And what you'll find, especially in the budget arena, is that the quality of a lot of these accessories is not the highest. They're literally there to make up the numbers. They're literally there just to get the budget turntable out of the door. As I say, the majority of the spend will have been placed upon the big items. So if you can enhance the sound by adding a new platter mat or an enhanced cartridge or a better head shell or whatever it might be, then you're improving the sound quality, you're maximizing the capacity of the turntable's performance, you're increasing the value of your turntable, and you're doing all of that when you can afford it, when the time is right for you. So what sorts of modifications can you apply to a typical turntable? Well, blimey, there's hundreds of turntables on the market right now. There's thousands of accessories I could choose from. So to prevent this video turning into a 6-hour marathon and boring you to tears, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one turntable, in this case a Pro-Ject RPM1. I'm going to gather together a bunch of accessories for that turntable. I'm going to see how these accessories affect the performance of the turntable. I'm going to put them on one at a time. After each upgrade, each change, each tweak, I'm going to see how that affects the turntable in this case. Now the RPM1 ostensibly retails for around $375 or so. You can buy cheaper. I've seen it online for around £299, and that's a bit of a bargain actually. And just generally, keep an eye on the RPM1. It's a great little turntable. For $299, that's a great price. So even if you're just as a by the way, if you're in line for a budget turntable purchase, take a look at the RPM1. But you might say to yourself, well, I haven't got an RPM1. I have no interest in the RPM1 and I will never buy an RPM1. I have a RFERENCE or a Rega or something else. How does this video apply to me? But even if you can't use the specific accessories I'm going to be talking about on your turntable, that doesn't mean you can't use a similar accessory on your turntable to get similar results. So at the very worst, you can use this video as a broad guide to your own circumstances, your own turntable, and your own source of accessories. The turntable itself arrives with a svelte chassis that, as you can see by the accompanying images, includes a glossy MDF plinth and platter, shaped and trimmed with no excess. A belt runs around the outside of the platter to a separate decoupled motor that sits in an outer plinth ring. The motor has access for a standard wall-wart power supply, and there's a rocker switch that sits atop the motor itself. The Platter's inverted main bearing uses a ceramic ball mounted onto a high mass base plate. There's a 10-inch S-shaped tone arm, as you can see. That's a carbon fibre aluminium resin combo. The RPM1 carbon tone arm is normally supplied with an Autophone 2M red cartridge. The arm arrives with a magnetic anti-skate mechanism, and there's a supplied counterweight which also uses something called TPE damping in the form of an anti-resonant ring around the fixing point. That just keeps some of the high frequency noise down. This particular turntable, just as a by the way, is available in red, white and black gloss finishes, and the package does not feature a dust cover, but you can buy one separately. So that's the basic RPM1 carbon, and that's going to be the host for the accessories I'm going to be using in this video. Now, another reason why I chose the RPM1 carbon, apart from the price, is the fact that it's a relatively tonally balanced neutral performer. So all the inherent frequencies are well disciplined. There's no mid-range smearing or barking. There's no bass bloom. Nothing sounds out of control here. Everything seems in order, and overall it's a good solid performer. So any accessory that I add to this turntable has to be a good one. It can't just make do. It has to actually improve upon this balanced neutral performance. It's going to have to add value, real value. Now, to tie up this feature with a nice big red bow, because I'm looking at a Pro-Ject turntable, I thought I'd look at a host of accessories that Pro-Ject actually offer for sale for any turntable. But I thought I would look at their catalogue and see what I could use from that catalogue and apply it to one of their own turntables, just to see how the turntable reacted. But as I say, these accessories can be used for any turntable. Now, for any budget turntable, if you're looking to upgrade the sound of that turntable, the first port of call is the cartridge. The cartridge itself is, in metaphorical terms, the tip of the spear. That's the real front end of your turntable. It's the bit which hits the groove, after all. So a cartridge can bring high returns when you're looking at performance. Now, with the RPM1, because it uses an Autophone 2M red, you can upgrade the cartridge by upgrading the stylus. So literally, you take off the little red bit on the Autophone 2M red and you replace it with an Audiophile 2M blue cartridge, which is coloured in blue. So effectively you can upgrade the entire cartridge by changing the stylus section. And you can buy one for around 100, 110, 120, depends where you shop, but somewhere in that area. If you're going to replace the stylus of the 2M red with a 2M blue, don't rush the job and be careful not to knock the cantilever and stylus tip. In fact, I know this sounds silly, but I would remove any floppy sleeved jumpers you may be wearing before you replace the stylus, just in case it tags the cantilever when you're moving your arm around. Then perform the operation at eye level so you can see what you're up to. With the 2M blue in place and playing a mixture of jazz and rock, the music featured less noise and greater precision in the upper mids. Guitar strings offered a better twang, while I listened to a few cellos and they arrived with enhanced focus. All were strong yet sprightly in tone. Both of these areas seemed slightly leaner because a touch of mid-range smear, noticed more in hindsight after fitting the 2M blue, had been further reduced, increasing the transient speed. Finally, I was impressed with the treble. Cymbals not only sounded larger and delicate, but the reverb tails attached to them travelled further. Adding the blue upgrade was a winner and highly recommended. For the next upgrade, I looked at the platter, and specifically the platter mat. Now, the RPM1 arrives with a felt mat, which is fine, but I wanted to upgrade that, so I grabbed in two mats from Pro-Ject. One is called the CORK-IT, and as you might expect, it's made out of cork, and the second one is made out of leather, called Leather-It. Now, the CORK-IT mat retails around 17, 18, 19 pounds. The Leather-It ranges between 45 and 50 pounds. Again, you only really notice that an issue exists when a modification fixes it. In this case, the leather mat lowered the veiling noise, creating a much smoother mid-band, allowing a Spanish guitar I was listening to reach further in dynamic terms, while giving cellos more room to manoeuvre. They seemed like a greater presence in the mix now. There was, however, a blanket of warmth over the upper areas of the sound frequency spectrum, with a slight roll-off at the top edges. The effect was relatively minor, but it was there. Because of that, I actually preferred the cork mat, the cheaper cork mat, which was a tad less warm and slightly more dynamic in terms of the upper mids. In fact, the frequency extremes seem to be further apart with the cork mat, giving a wider spectrum of sonic colours to experience, adding to the richness of the soundstage and enhancing the shared detail within via improved mid-range insight. Guitar string resonance appeared to be enhanced, for example. So look, so far I'd improved the cartridge and I had added a new platter mat. And I've got a few more accessories to go. But even at this stage, even at this point, I could feel the RPM1 moving away from that default sound, and for the better. But I could feel, it was almost like on a journey, I could feel the enhancements, one after another, improving. It was like an upward slope. Next, I wanted to change the actual platter itself, the bit that moves around, the bit that holds the record. I wanted to change that. On the RPM1, it's made out of MDF. I wanted to enhance that with something called acryl-it, and it seems that every Pro-Ject accessory is called something it. This one, as I say, is called acryl-it. So literally, you just take the MDF platter off, you lift it up over the spindle, put it to one side gently, take the acryl-it back down on the spindle, you're done. A very easy upgrade. Now, because this is a pretty major component, it's a pretty major part of any turntable, as you know yourself. Because it's a fair size, it costs a little bit more. So in this case, you're looking at around 105, 110 pounds to replace the platter. Not inordinately expensive, but it's a little bit more cash. The effect, though, was to add a tremendous maturity to the entire soundstage. Sound quality really moved apace here, with a wholly new soundstage installed, giving a low noise performance, a solid basic musical structure, plus impressive precision and focus that not only added a measure of pace to the track as a whole, but also improved the tonality throughout. The installation of the new platter was in itself a major component upgrade that moved this turntable up several rungs in terms of clarity. Now, one particular track I played was a prog rock example, and this included classical and rock type instruments working cheek by jowl with a host of intricate musicianship swamping the area. So any turntable has to work hard to work all of that out. The platter here, the acryl-it, enabled the RPM to do just that. The sonic improvement was further enhanced by adding the cork mat on top of this replacement platter. Next, I wanted to include 3 little pucks, I suppose you could call them, and each of these little pucks sat underneath each of the 3 feet on the turntable. So they acted as sort of isolation feet, as it were. So literally, you would put each of these pucks underneath each of the turntable's feet, and you're done. Now, the price of the Absorb-It feet, a little bit more expensive again. You're talking around £140. You get a set of 4 feet in a box. With the feet in place, I noticed an immediate enhancement in the bass regions. The bass was stronger and firmer, more focused, and on my reference tracks, the feet provided real traction for a series of cellos and provided drums with significant presence. But I would have liked more control over these enhanced frequencies, and also the upper frequencies, which were slightly weakened in the meantime. I felt the feet were good, solid designs, but to be honest with you, for the price, I wanted more. I then moved on to, well, a platform called Ground-It. It's basically a solid platform which you place your turntable upon, and underneath the platform are some isolation feet, some rather pointy isolation feet in this case. And with the turntable in place, the bass improved, but the lower frequencies were enhanced in a balanced fashion along with the mid-range and the treble. The platform gave me the sort of performance I was wanting and expecting from the feet and didn't quite get. Here, the platform enhanced the sonic improvements evenly and across the board to allow for a neutral yet detailed and clear presentation. The enhanced bass provided a full and weighty element to the soundstage, while the music moved along with a mass, but it never dragged. The bass section remained quite sprightly, in fact. Upper mid-range highlights were just as detailed and light on their feet, but this time the string plucks for the Spanish guitar, for example, added a more substantial and slightly portentous resonance. Now, unlike some turntables, the nice thing about the RPM1 Carbon is that you can remove and replace the phono cables at the rear of the actual turntable. So for my final upgrade, I removed the default cables that came with the turntable and replaced those cables with Pro-Ject's Connect-It CC. These cables can be bought for somewhere around £100. Sometimes a little bit more expensive, 115. Sometimes you can pick them up cheaper, around 90. Again, you need to shop around with all of these accessories to find a good deal for you. Despite a slight lift in the mid-range, which added a slight stridency to the upper mids, the response of the new cables was to lower noise further, which enhanced the overall soundstage again, especially the percussion, which moved left and right towards the outreaches of each channel, but also improved in terms of tonal quality. Precision and focus was also improved over all frequencies. So what have I learned here? Well, most turntables that you will buy, most good quality audiophile turntables that you will buy, that is, are really, in a way, starter kits that you can improve and enhance to maximize your initial investment. And after adding all of the modifications, what are you left with? Well, it's not really an RPM1 carbon anymore. That is, the final sonic difference is so large, the sound is actually completely different, but in a good way. It's more like an RPM4 carbon. The overall sound quality is so far away from the original that this deck sounds like a completely new design. It also should provide confidence and added security for those RPM1 carbon buyers out there, but not just RPM1 owners and not just owners of Pro-Ject turntables. All turntable owners need to take a look at these and other upgrades. Your turntable most probably includes untapped potential that can be accessed for not a great deal of money. So are you fed up with your turntable's performance and need an upgrade? Well, rather than buying an entirely new turntable, consider these upgrades or something similar. So instead of reaching for your wallet and buying an expensive new turntable, consider upgrading what you already have. Upgrading what you want when you can afford it. It can be a highly rewarding exercise and you won't regret it. And that's me done. Thank you for staying till the end of this video. I will see you hopefully in the next video. Until then, bye bye for now.